So the minority caucus in Parliament has also succeeded in thwarting government's proposed allocation of 80 million cedis for the purposes of construction of the National Cathedral. The NDC MPs who initially shot down the allocation of the committee at the committee level mounted spirited arguments against pumping such an amount into the project, given the economic crisis in the country is going through. Now, the said amount has now been redirected to the Communications and the Roads Ministry.
A lot has been said about the National Cathedral. The government of President Akufo-Addo, the MPP government, concedes and acknowledges that we have a nation to build. We concede and acknowledges that we have to prioritize. The Speaker, we concede and acknowledge that we have educational infrastructure to build. We have to provide health needs to our people. We have to bring prosperity to our people. But I also want to submit, without a shred of equivocation, Mr. Speaker, and with all the emphasis, that whatever amount of money are being asked of us to approve in this House to build the National Cathedral, it is going to inure to the benefit of this country, because it is only when the Lord blesses our effort that it will bear fruit. Mr. Speaker, in final conclusion, and I don't want to be personal, Mr. Speaker, as a young practicing lawyer, I had the privilege of being mentored spiritually by our Archbishop Duncan Williams. And Mr. Speaker, in one interaction with him, I placed more emphasis on my preparation as a lawyer to the detriment of my spiritual development. The good Archbishop, the father of charismatic faith in our country, pointed out to me, and I'm not surprised that he's a member of the Board of Trustees of the National Cathedral, pointed out to me that whatever you do as a professional, you need the guidance and blessings of the Almighty.
And you sit here today and you tell me that unless we build a cathedral, we will not have God's blessings. And you know the same people who say that we have been blessed by not having a civil war. Did we have a cathedral for us not to have a civil war? Look at the cathedrals that we have. I'm a member of the Parish Chapel International. Our cathedral seats 14,000 people. We are building a 5,000-seater cathedral. If 14,000 will not attract the blessings of God, is 5,000 built by an LGBTQ advocate that will attract his blessings?
Now, co-chair of Citizens Movement Against Corruption, Edem Senanu, joins us on the line for a conversation on this. Edem, thank you for joining us. Good afternoon. Welcome to Newsbeat. Now, the last time we spoke, the debate had just begun. It has gotten to the point where the minority has succeeded in shooting the request down, but the money of 80 million allocation is being redirected to the Roads Ministry. What do you make of this development?
Okay, thank you. I suspect that you are calling me in respect of my being the chair of Advocates for Christ Ghana, who'd been speaking on this matter. Our position had always been that this is not one of those issues where state resources should be deployed. If it's a matter of the Christian community, then those involved must be those in the Christian community who want to volunteer resources towards it. In that context, therefore, I think it's appropriate if Parliament decides that, look, this is not a priority of the state that includes other constituencies at this moment, and therefore have, as it were, rejected the attempt to have resources allocated. I think that is in order. And those who really want to promote this must dig into their own pockets. The Christian community that are aligned must be canvassed if they want this thing to happen.
So, I mean, how do we handle it as a nation? Because we know that we also have a religious position to a certain point, and that is what I think usually has been used to advance the argument of getting some revenue in proceeding the project of the cathedral. How do we position ourselves properly so that it doesn't look like it's also a battle being waged against the Christian community?
Well, I think that the first thing would be to make sure that the umbrella groupings in the Christian community meet and have a common position. If we're not united, I'm a Christian myself, it will mean that it is those members amongst us who are aligned with this particular project who are the ones who are going to carry the project if they are interested. So I think it borders on, first, if the presidency wants this to be a Christian thing, you've got to meet with the leadership of the Christian community and got to canvass unity amongst the various denominations on this particular subject matter. And on that basis, therefore, the leadership will then reach out to their constituents and say, look, every month or every week, try and make a certain donation. And so it will be covered. Otherwise, then you are also reaching out to constituencies that don't believe in the same faith, and that complicates the matter. So I don't see it as being a war being waged against a particular faith. I think that the genesis and the foundation required a lot more stakeholder engagement and ensuring that the stakeholders are aligned before moving ahead. Perhaps it is time to pause, go back, and ensure that that stakeholder engagement and that unity of purpose is achieved. Then you can then, on the back of that, launch forward and say we'll get progress.
Is it possible that this could also end up becoming one of the projects that we've pumped over 200 million into, and it's just going to go waste because at this point in time the project has begun, but obviously it's stalling?
It is potentially possible if we don't begin to spread, open up, widen the stakeholder engagement, and then think out of the box. I have said that, look, when you are running projects, anyone who's run a project or a program knows that you hit hurdles. What do? You rethink. You either cut down the size, the scope. You look at what we call the design assumptions, were the assumptions right? Are the capacities or the expertise being brought to bear okay? Do we break it into tranches or phases? Do we then lower the overall expectation? So there are things you can do. I would then say that, look, let's face it, what's the level of resources available? What can it deliver in the grand scheme? Let's focus on what can be done now out of the resources available. Maybe cut down to size what we intended to do from the beginning. Change the design if it involves certain components that are much more expensive. There are things that if you are willing to confront the issues, you can do and still come out with something. So let those who are managing this sit down and rethink. And if they want advice, there are people who can give them advice on how you can restructure and get something out of the resources you have. But fundamentally, they need to do a much wider stakeholder engagement, get people to align, then they can have resources if they want to move forward.
Adam Sananu, grateful for your time.